Hello and welcome to my Hyperfixations. We are going to be starting this series off with a hyperfixation that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is cooking, but more specifically, Filipino cooking. So I am a biracial Filipino person, and so I have been obsessed with Filipino food for a good portion of my life. So I wanted to take you through two of my favorite recipes. So one recipe that we'll be doing today is adobo, which is the national dish of the Philippines. It's like a soy saucy, tangy, slightly salty stew. 10 out of 10 delicious. And then the other recipe that I'm going to be doing is called la olla, and you can make it a variety of different ways, but we are going to be doing a beef version today. So the ingredients for the la olla are going to be beef shank, ginger, garlic, onion. I like to add a Thai chili pepper for heat. A sweetener, I'm using maple syrup. You could use like whatever sugar you have. Bay leaves, peppercorn, and veggies. And before we get started, I do want to add just like a little preface. I am not the Lorax of Filipino people. I do not speak for all of the Filipinos out there. So if my recipe is a little different from the way another Filipino person would make it, like that's totally okay. This is all based off of like my preferences and how my family cooks. So just had to throw it out there. So the first thing we're gonna get started doing is taking our meat and we're gonna put it in a pot. And we're actually going to cover this in water and then we're gonna boil it. And that way we can get some of like the gross imperfections and impurities and just like the ick out of the meat. So while the water is boiling and we're gonna wait for our meat to get ready, I'm just gonna cut some veggies to get ready to put into the soup after. So I'm gonna start with a big chunk of garlic, and you just gotta follow your heart when you're deciding how much garlic to put in. I'm gonna put in close to a full clove because I like it garlicky, and that's kind of like the allure for me. And I'm just gonna say everything we use today is gonna have a lot of garlic. Is the hyperfixation garlic? Maybe. So when I first got into Filipino food, it was actually when I went back to the Philippines to visit it for the first time with my grandparents. And before then, like I'd had Filipino food before. It's kind of impossible to grow up in a Filipino household without having it before, but like, I don't know, it wasn't really very special to me. And then I went back on vacation with my grandparents and had to eat Filipino food every day because I was in the Philippines, and like what else are you gonna eat while you're there, right? So I was there, I was eating it every day, I was loving it, I was living la vida loca, and then I came back home and was living on my own and needed to start feeding myself. And so Filipino food is what was familiar, and it was honestly really shockingly easy to make. Filipino food prior had always felt like a bit of a mystery, especially because anytime I asked my grandma to teach me how to cook something, she wouldn't actually teach me. She wouldn't give me the recipe or anything. She would be like, okay, come over on Monday night, we'll say. So I would go over on Monday night, and she would have just cooked whatever it was that I wanted her to teach me how to make. She would have just made it. And I was like, oh, okay, like I wanted you to teach me. But you know, we got there in the end. God bless the internet for all it offers. All of the like grandmas online were able to help me out, so big props to them for their service. So I'm just mincing up this garlic. Like, if you want to be lazy, you can just leave it in cloves. That's totally fine. I'm just mincing because that's how I prefer it. And with this soup especially, like you can make it as lazy or as involved as you want. So like I'm gonna chop up all my veggies, but you super don't have to. You can just chuck everything in the pot and let it live. So we got our garlic done. I like to use a really big knob of ginger for this. So I'm gonna use like, I don't know what size this is, a couple inches worth of ginger. Because for me, like this is a really comfort food, you know, especially in the winter time. So I like having ginger and things that are warming in it so that it just like warms your tiny little soul, and you feel nice and cozy. It's kind of the whole vibe. I think my ginger is like on the cusp of not being okay with itself. Let me see if I have another ginger. Okay, I had more ginger that wasn't looking like it potentially would poison me. That's the problem when you have ADHD, I find, is like using food before it goes bad can be really difficult. Like the amount of times I'll go out and I'll do groceries and then I forget that I have those groceries in my house, or like I just can't get myself to use them in time, is too high. So doing stuff like this, like today both of the recipes I'm making are pretty big recipes. And so I'm gonna actually freeze a bunch of like little individual portions from what we make. And like I found that has been so helpful, not only for reducing my food waste, but also for the days that I don't want to cook. Like it's nice to just be able to grab something out of the freezer, because there are those days, right, where like cooking can feel like this huge insurmountable mountain in a chain of other huge insurmountable mountains in your life. So I like to make it easier for myself where I can. Okay, so for the ginger, I'm not really gonna cut it up very fine. I'm just gonna smash it really big and cut it into a few pieces, because I like to be able to pick out the chunk of ginger from the soup. I don't really like little gingery bits. I find them very bitter in my mouth and I'm not into it. Okay, so our water is boiled, so I'm gonna get that poured in with our beef, and we're pouring our hot water in there. And I'm just doing enough water to mostly cover most of the meat in this pot, and then we're gonna bring it back up to a boil. We have garlic, we have ginger, and so I'm gonna cut up some onion now. I'm using a little nubbin of an onion that I had before. Again, food waste is a big thing, and also being able to use the ingredients that I have is like, I don't know, a key part of cooking for me. Like that's one of the keys to the hyperfixation, I think, that keeps my brain going, is trying to figure out how to use what I have in a way that A, is tasty, B, isn't a lot of effort, and C, again, just like uses the ingredients that I've already got laying around. And like, that's the puzzle of it that keeps my brain turning. Okay, so our beef is starting to boil now. You can see there's kind of like these gross little boops of scum popping up. So that's what we want to happen. Otherwise that would end up in our finished soup. So we're just gonna wait a little longer for kind of more of that scum to come up to the surface. And then after that, we're going to drain it and rinse the meat off. And then we are ready to cook with it. So we're actually going to be making this in a pressure cooker. If you don't have a pressure cooker, you can totally just use like a pot and a cover on the stove. It's just going to take a lot longer. But I'm doing the pressure cooker version right now. So I'm gonna take my meat and I'm gonna toss it into the pressure cooker. And then I'm also going to take all of the veggies that I cut up so far, so our garlic, our ginger, and our onion, and toss that in. I'm also going to put in our 1 Thai chili pepper as well, and then I'm going to cover this with water. You can see I just filled it with enough water to kind of cover all the meat and then a little bit extra. You'll notice that I'm not really using any precise measurements, and that's because I'm cooking with the heart, but also because having to remember measurements would just make me never want to cook. So I'm just throwing things in according to how I feel. And if you need more precise measurements than that, like I will put a little recipe card at the very end of the episode and you can use that as a guideline. But just know it's so much easier if you just follow the vibe sometimes. I find that having a recipe can be a little bit of a barrier to me for cooking, so yeah. Anywho, so that's covered with water. The last things that we're going to add in are our seasonings. So I've got bay leaves here, so I'm going to toss in a couple of bay leaves, and then I'm also going to toss in some whole peppercorn. I'm going to do like, I don't know, 10 to 15, whatever like a nice little handful is going to go in there. My sweetener, so like I said, I'm using maple syrup today, but you could use regular sugar, you could use brown sugar, you could use honey if you wanted to, just any sweetener you want. I'm Canadian, I gotta use some maple syrup action. Also, it is what I have in the cupboard, so I gotta do that. And then the last thing I'm gonna add in is just like a hearty shaking of salt. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it into the pressure cooker for about 45 minutes to do its thing. Once it's done doing its thing, we are going to add some veggies in. But in the meantime, I'm gonna go put this over there and then we'll get started on the adobo. Okay, so we are going to move on to making the chicken adobo. So the ingredients are going to be chicken. I am using skinless thighs, but you could use drumsticks and thighs or breast. I find that breast has a tendency to potentially dry out. And if there's one thing I know about myself, it's that I won't eat dry meat. So I like to stick with thigh. What else will you need? Soy sauce, vinegar. There are specifically Filipino brands of soy sauce and vinegar, fun fact. You don't need to use the Filipino versions, but if you want it to be as authentic as possible, you can. Honestly, I didn't buy them until this year, so you're totally okay to use whatever it is that you have in your pantry. Garlic, lots of it. Peppercorn, lots of it. And bay leaves. And that's it. Honestly, it is just the tiniest little handful of ingredients, but it does make something really, really yummy. So we are gonna start by prepping our garlic. Again, use your intuition as a human being for how much garlic you wanna use. I'm gonna use about half a clove. Sometimes if I'm feeling really cheeky, I'll use a full clove, but we gotta keep it PG, G-rated for the TV production. And for this, I'm not actually gonna mince my garlic. I'm just going to peel it and smash it, and that's it. I like to have the big chonkies when I'm doing my adobo. Another hack for folks with ADHD who have a difficult time cooking is you can buy garlic that's already peeled, so that saves one extra step. Alternatively, you can, if you have like a food processor, you can food process a bunch of garlic and freeze it and use it that way. Or even if you don't have a food processor, you can just do it by hand where you spend, like 45 minutes just you and the garlic having a moment, a hot date night, and you cut it up really fine, you freeze it in bags, and then you have it ready to go, and that way you don't have to do it every time you cook. As I mentioned earlier, like for me, cooking can feel just like this massive weight sometimes. There's just so many parts to it. And sometimes that's great because it's task completion, right? It's like you assemble the ingredients, you prep the ingredients, you cook them, and then you clean and you do all of the things. You've got all of these little dopamine triggers built into cooking. And other times, cooking can just be too much because it's all those little tasks that you have to do. It can get really overwhelming really quick. So I like to try and make it easier on myself where I can by doing stuff like prepping this stuff ahead of time and not having to necessarily do it in the moment, because it can be a huge barrier to being able to make your own food. I'll also say really quick, I have a handful of meals that I'll make for myself that are like my go-to comfort meals for when my ADHD is really popping off and I can't be bothered to do like this huge production of cooking. So you're totally welcome to steal these to use as your ADHD comfort meals. One of mine, cheese quesadilla. Literally cheese in a tortilla. You're done. You're great. You're beautiful. You're perfect. It takes like 1 minute to make. It's so good. Second one, peanut butter and jam on toast. That's a quick and easy meal. Love it. Third one, congee. And like there are a lot of really fancy ways to make congee, but the easiest way and the way that I'm talking about is you just put like half a cup of rice with like 4 cups of water on the stove and you just let it do its thing for like half an hour, 45 minutes until it's all broken up and you've got like a rice porridge stew thing. It's easy. And honestly, never feel guilty if you don't have the energy to cook for yourself and you need to just use like a pre-made meal. Like that's okay. It's a disability and it's okay to take care of yourself sometimes and do what's easy. Today we're not doing what's easy though. We're doing a full-fledged production. We're cooking. So I tossed my garlic into this pan, and then do I want to use a little bit of oil? Do we want to be cheeky and use like a teeny tiny bit of oil? We can do that. So I'm lying. We're gonna take this garlic out of this pan. Cooking sometimes is a mess. And I'm just using the exact same pot that I used to boil the beef in because I didn't want to have to do extra dishes. Again, you gotta remove the barriers to cooking. So for me, one of my barriers is having a ton of cooking after. It just makes me not want to cook ever. Like, why would I want to do 18 piles of dishes when I could just heat up a pizza pop? You know what I mean? So I'm gonna reuse the same pot just for the sake of making my brain happy. And then into this pot, we're just going to heat up a teeny tiny bit of olive oil. And then into this oil, once it's heated up, we are going to toss the garlic, and then we are going to toss the chicken in just to get like a little bit of browning action happening. Basically, the biggest part of this dish is your vinegar to soy sauce. So I would recommend starting off with like a 1-to-1 ratio. So I'm using about a 1/2 cup vinegar, and I'll be using a 1/2 cup soy sauce, and then a 1/4 cup water. So 1 to 0.5 of vinegar to soy sauce to water. And then you can tweak that based off of your preferences. So if you know you like it a little bit more salty and soy-y, you can up the soy sauce. If you know you like it a little bit more tangy and acidic, you can up the vinegar, so on, so forth. So we've got hot oil. I'm going to add our chicken in first, actually. So chicken's going in. And it's okay that I'm not giving it like a ton of room to breathe. I just want them to get a little bit of brown on them. This isn't the main part of the cooking. And kind of once this all releases from the pan is when you know it's good to do its thing. So that's not quite ready yet. I'm gonna add the garlic into a little spare spot there though. And the reason we're doing this is just to give the meat a little bit of color and to get it browned. It helps add to the flavor. But if you are pressed for time, you can totally skip this step and just throw everything into a pot at once and bring it up to a boil. I'm just doing this over like medium heat. Garlic's nice and brown. Okay, perfect. So now that things in there are starting to cook a little bit, we are going to add in the rest of our ingredients. So I'm going to start with my soy sauce and pour that in, making a mess. And then I'm going to go in with my vinegar. And I do like to just add water in as well. Like I said, about a 1 to 0.5 for soy sauce, vinegar, water. And I'm going to kind of poke everything down so it's all as submerged as we can get it. And then I'm going to add in some sweetener as well to this. I'm still using maple syrup. So I'm going to pour in maybe like a tablespoon of maple syrup. We're going to put in our bay leaves. So more leaves go in. I'm adding in like 3, maybe 4 little ones. Poke those in. And then finally, we're going to be adding in a ton of black peppercorn. So I've got those there. And I'm gonna leave these ones whole. And then when we go to serve it, we're going to crack fresh peppercorn on top as well. So like the key elements of this dish, because there's like 4 of them, are the soy sauce, the vinegar, and the black pepper. So you really wanna make sure like all of those flavors are coming through in your adobo. So this is coming back up to a simmer. I'm gonna lower it a little bit. And then I'm going to cover it, and we're going to let that cook for probably around like 20-ish minutes until everything is cooked through. So we're gonna let that do its thing. While everything is in the process of being cooked, I'm just going to get my veggies washed and cleaned and ready to go. And I'm also going to get some rice together because you can't have Filipino food without having rice with it. So our la olla is done. I'm going to fish out the little Thai chili pepper and just get rid of that because I don't want to eat it accidentally later. It's not a nice time. And then I'm gonna add in my veggies. So I have like little green beans and baby bok choy. You can add in whatever veggies you have around. This is just what I had. I think traditionally a lot of people will put potato or sweet potato in, but I don't really like the way that it tastes, so I'm gonna use these instead. I've done corn, broccoli, literally any veggie you have is good to go in here. And I'm gonna put in a ton of veggies because I like a very heavy vegetable dish. So I'm gonna toss those into the pressure cooker, and then we are going to put the lid back on, pressure cook this for about 2 minutes, and it'll be done. All right, so we are done and we have created the hyperfixation. We have chicken adobo, we've got rice, we've got la olla, and I am going to go crush eating all of these things. So I hope you enjoyed learning how to make a new dish, perhaps? No, I'm not like that. All right, so all of our food is complete. We've got chicken adobo, we've got white rice, we've got la olla, and I'm really excited to have been able to show you one of my nearest and dearest to the heart hyperfixations, and something that I dive into super frequently because eating is one of my favorite things and being Filipino is part of my core personality. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed getting to know a little bit about these foods. If you want the recipes, I will have them at the very end of the video for you to peruse. And I'm gonna go crush eating some food. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.